All right, everybody. What's up? Welcome. Good evening. Happy July 31st. Hope everybody's having a great evening wherever you are. If you're watching, if you could go ahead and type your name in the chat box. Love to see your name and where you're from. Hello, John. Hello, John Stutz from Chattanooga, Tennessee, Calvary Chapel. I love Calvary Chapel. JD, welcome from Baltimore. Dan, welcome. Dan's coming from Evergreen Church in Bloomington, Minnesota. It's awesome. Well, hey, tonight what we're going to do in our Summer webinar series is we're going to talk about arrangement view. Now, there's so many different ways you can use Ableton Live. So many different ways, and Ableton Live has two different views to it. There is what's called Session View, which looks like this. And a lot of our videos at Loop Community talk about a Session View. We haven't done a lot of videos that talk about Arrangement View. What's cool about the two views, so this is Session View, and then on this side it's Arrangement View. What's cool about the two views is you can do a lot of the same things in both views. So both views can be used to record, and both views can be used to run tracks live in performance. And so we're going to talk about today how to actually run your tracks in Arrangement View. And you might even find as you're watching this, maybe there's some benefits that you see of using Arrangement View. I don't feel like there's any sort of like right or wrong way to use Ableton Live. Really, you can just use it to whatever fits your needs and makes what you're doing easier. So I mostly run my tracks in Session View, but there are times when I run an Arrangement View, and we're going to kind of talk about some of those reasons, and we'll kind of see what some of the benefits are. But a lot of times people don't know how to use Arrangement View. So we're going to talk about that now, and I'm going to break it down and make it really simple. And what we're going to do is we're going to build a set together from scratch in Arrangement View as if we were going to use it this weekend in church. So, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start with, I'm just going to start with one track. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically line up our set list down this timeline from left to right. So we've got one track here, and let me zoom in. If you put your mouse up by the bar numbers and just click and drag, you can kind of zoom in and out and scroll left and right, which is really great. So at bar 2, I'm going to hit this little button right here that says Set. And when I hit Set, it's going to add a little marker or a flag. And this marker, I can right-click and rename it, and we're going to name this our first song. So our first song, I'm going to hit 1, and then I'm going to type, our first song is going to be Open Up the Heavens, and just hit enter. So here's our first song, and let's go ahead and bring in our tracks. So over here in the live browser, over on the left-hand side of the screen, this is where I can access all the files on my computer. So I have a shortcut that I've added, and it's My Worship Songs. Okay, and so here's a bunch of songs that I've downloaded from Loop Community. And let's open up the heavens. And you can see there's a bunch of audio files in here, and they're labeled by the song title, the tempo of the song, the key of the song, and then what that instrument is. So what we're going to do is I'm going to name our first track. I'm going to right-click and rename it. We're going to call this Cues. And this track is where we're going to put all of our band cue tracks. So let me drag in the cue track, and I'm just going to drop it right here. And let me go ahead and play it for you so you can hear what it sounds like.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Let me play that again.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
So that's our cue track. So all of our cue tracks for every song are going to be on this one single track. And if you want, you can color it. I'm going to right click, and let's just make it, we're going to make these orange. You can also right click on the clip itself to make the clip orange if you want. So we've got Open Up the Heavens. Now let's bring in some instruments. I can kind of make this track smaller by clicking and dragging. And I'm going to drag over all of these audio files, or you could just choose the ones you want. So I'm going to hold the Command key and just select all the tracks that I want. For this demo, we're just going to use them all. I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to hold the Command key, and it's going to drop them in vertically. if you don't hold the command key, it's going to just drop them in horizontally, which you wouldn't want because they're going to be stacked down the timeline. So I'm going to hold command and then drop it. And what Live does is it creates a bunch of new audio tracks for me. Now, if I wanted to be really organized, I could go through here and rename all these tracks. So I could rename this one to pad, I could rename this one to organ, loop, hand percussion, electric, rhythm, and so forth. Shoot, since I'm that far down, I might as well just do them all. Here's electric lead, drums, bass. I'm a little OCD, so sometimes I just have to finish the task, right? Okay, so I've got all my tracks. I can kind of hit play here. If you put your mouse up in the bar counter, you can get a little, it gives you a little speaker where you can just click and it will play the audio. Okay, so the audio is playing. I can hit solo to solo those tracks and listen to them. Here's the loop, hand percussion, electric guitar. And you've got your standard mixer controls. Here's like this is a on and off button. You can mute the track. You can solo the track. And there's also a volume meter where you can turn things up and down if you want. If you hit the delete key on it, it will reset it back to 0. Anyway, so I've got all my tracks. For that to open up the heavens. And looks good. So now we're going to add in another song. Well, actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and what we're going to do is we need to set the metronome. So there's something that I like to do, and we're going to use a tempo track. So I'm going to go to Create. I'm going to go to Insert Audio Track. And this is going to be at the top of the set. I'm going to rename this and call this Tempo Track. We'll just call it Tempo. And let's make this red. All right, now on the tempo track, what we're going to do is I'm going to drag in an audio file. It could be any audio file that you want. I have a blank audio file that I created, and literally that's all it is. It's just a blank audio file. You could bring in any audio file and then just turn the volume down if you wanted. Just bring in a blank audio file. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell Live to sync up to whatever tempo we tell this clip to play at. So up here, there is the main metronome control center. So if I hit this button right here, it turns the metronome on and off. Right here, I can choose the tempo of the song. So I could set it to 70 BPM, and then here's our time signature at 4/4. Let's go ahead and hit play and see what that sounds like.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so obviously that's not going to work because the metronome is not in time with the tracks. So Open Up the Heavens is at 99 BPM, and I know that because the file names say 99. Now, you could use the master down here, and you could draw in the song tempo using little breakpoints. However, I don't like doing that just because it gets really messy. So we're not even going to use that at all. What we're going to use is this tempo track. And this clip, I'm going to set it to loop, and I'm also going to set it to where it says slave. Instead of it saying slave, I'm going to turn it on to master. And what that means is that this metronome is going to follow whatever this clip is set to. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this clip out all the way to the end of the song. Okay. All the way to the end of the song. And I'm going to set the tempo of this clip to 99 because that's what Open Up the Heavens is. So let's double click on the clip, and then down here I can change the tempo. So let's set it to 99 and hit enter. Now let's go ahead and hit the stop button to rewind back to the beginning, and let's hit play, and you'll notice
Intro 2.
actually what we need to do, sorry, is I'm going to hit the master and hit slave again. There we go. You need to set the tempo first and then turn master on. You'll notice that the metronome just changed to 99. And it's going to stay 99 for as long as that tempo track lasts. So it's going to just drag it out to the end of the song again. Let's go over here and just kind of see where the song ends. Alright, so I want my next song to start right here at bar 103. What's kind of cool with arrangement view is you can use it to really craft the flow of a worship set. So you can kind of let your tracks play from start to finish and really craft like the transitions really carefully. So let me hit play again and let's listen to it. We're going to craft where our next song starts. So right there is where I want the next song to start. So I'm going to click, hit the set button, right click, and let's rename it. I'm going to type in 2, and our second song is going to be This Is Amazing Grace. Okay, before we get moving, let's go back to the beginning, and you can also set the time signature for this song if you want. All you need to do is just right click and go to Insert Time Signature. And I can say whatever time signature I want. So for this song, I want 4/4. Let's hit stop twice. Check it out from the beginning. Ready? Here we go. I have that blank space. Here we go. You saw the time signature changed and the tempo changed. And we're into Open Up the Heavens. And it's going to play all the way through Open Up the Heavens. Now if I wanted, I could also add markers for all the different sections of the song. So here's one. Here's a verse. So I can hit the set button, right click, and let's call it verse. And then here's the pre-chorus. It depends how organized you want to get with this. You could mark out the entire song. The plus of marking out the entire song is now I could jump around the song all I want because Ableton uses quantization. So I could click on verse, and then if I want to go to the pre-chorus, I can just click the pre-chorus button, and here it goes. And it goes on the next downbeat. Let's go back to the pre-chorus. Or back to the verse. So you can mark it out if you want. We don't have time to do the whole song, so I'm not going to map the whole thing out. All right, let's look at our next song. And first of all, I want to go ahead and color this song out. So I'm going to highlight all those tracks by holding the Shift key and clicking. And let's go ahead and set a color. I can also Shift select all of those clips and assign the same color. So we've got Open Up the Heavens. Looks great. Now I'm going to go ahead and Shift select all of Open Up the Heavens and collapse them just so I have a little bit more room to move around here. So our next song is going to be This Is Amazing Grace. And I'm going to just copy and paste that tempo track. So copy, just doing Command C and then Command V to paste. And this is going to be This Is Amazing Grace. And let me go and set the tempo for that. So let's look at our song. All right, my worship songs. This Is Amazing Grace. Okay, it's at 98. So I'm going to double click on the tempo track and change it to 98. And hit enter. So we're not changing that much. We're going from 99 to 98. Again, you have to hit the master button again to get it to reset. Now it's at 98. Okay, so you can't hear it change that much. Let's just say we want to do a time signature change right there. Insert time signature change. And let's make it, we're going to do 2/8 for this song. And let's go ahead and bring in our tracks. So I'm going to drag in the Q track on its own. And I'm going to throw that right on the Q track. And let's go ahead and bring in everything else. So I'm going to just hold Shift to select all those tracks, and then click and drag, hold Command, and drop. Notice I dropped them down here because I wanted it to create a whole new set of tracks for me. So I'm going to hold Shift to select these, and let's go ahead and set a color for these. Just because. I'm not going to rename them like I did the other last song because we don't need to. Alright, and there is This Is Amazing Grace. Let's go ahead and listen to what this sounds like.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Cool. And now we're right in. So it changed the tempo. So what's really cool is you can kind of like, as I was saying earlier, you can craft your set and how things flow together. Let's change the color of this one as well to match. I'm OCD. Drives me crazy. Alright. Let me go ahead and hold Shift, and I'm going to collapse all of these tracks as well. Now, let me show you a trick here. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to, first of all, we're going to save this session by going to File, Save, because it would be very sad if we lost all this. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to group all these tracks together. So I'm going to hold Shift and select all these tracks. I'm going to right click and go to Group Tracks. And what it did is it collapsed all of those tracks into one group or one track. So I'm going to rename it. I'm going to call it this. So this is what's our first song? Open Up the Heavens. And then I can collapse it. And what it kind of did, it just condensed everything. It saved me a lot of room. Let's do the same thing for This Is Amazing Grace. So highlight it, right click, Group Tracks. And we'll call it This Is Amazing. Let's collapse it. And of course you can set your color. Very clean, right? Very, very clean. So let's add another song to our set. Let's find the end of this song. Again, you have to make sure that the tempo track goes all the way to the end of This Is Amazing Grace. So let's see how this song ends. Ready?
1, 2, 3, 4.
So right there, I think, is where I want my next song to start, right at bar 555. So I'm going to hit the Set button, and we're going to right-click and rename it. We're going to do Song 3. And let's make this one The Rock Won't Move. So I'm going to rename it, call it The Rock Won't Move. Hopefully you guys are kind of getting the hang of how I'm doing this now. Session view and arrangement view are so different. And it really just depends on what your workflow is like and what you prefer. Also, it depends on what kind of, how you want your set to flow. So if you want to really kind of pre-program out how everything flows together, this might be a good option for you. Let's go ahead and collapse This Is Amazing Grace. And we're going to bring in the Rock Won't Move tracks. So let's go to the Rock Won't Move. This song is at 128 BPM. So let's bring in our cue track. I like to keep all the cues onto one track. It's just easier that way. Let's drag that tempo track back. All right, and let's bring in everything else. So I'm going to hold Shift. I'm going to hold Command to get rid of the ones I don't want. And then click, hold Command, and drop. Let's go ahead and highlight these tracks. And we're going to make this song, how about yellow? By the way, if you guys have any questions at all, go ahead and type them into the comment box. I'm going to right click on the cue track. Let's make that yellow. All right, let's go ahead and copy and paste that tempo track. So copy and then paste. And then double click on it, and we're going to change the tempo of this song. It's going to be 128. Hit master and then hit it again to kind of reset it. And let's drag that tempo clip all the way to the end of the song. Let's also set a time signature change. So I'm going to right click, insert time signature change. And this one we're going to do at 4. Let's do 4/4. Okay, and let's go ahead and back here and hit play and see what it sounds like.
1, 2, 3, 4. Intro 2, 3, 4.
So my tempo changed, my time signature changed, and I'm into my tracks. Let's go ahead and group these together, highlight all of them, right click, go to Group Tracks, and we're going to call this Rock Won't Move. Okay. Color it. And I guess if you wanted, you probably could also color the tempo track to match the song, if that helps you visually. Just right click on it. So I've got my whole set that I'm kind of making here. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning, and I want to show you something that I noticed. So between our first and second song, there was kind of an overlap, and I want to do a fade or a crossfade.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
So I want those Open Up the Heavens tracks to fade out a little sooner. This is one of the benefits of throwing your song into a group. Because what I can do in the group is I can actually open up the group and click here and go to Mixer and change this to track volume. And I can automate the volume for that group. So what we're going to do is when it gets to the end here, I'm going to just double click to add a breakpoint and click again. And I'm just going to fade out that track. And you're going to see this volume just automatically turn down because I just automated it.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
So that was a little abrupt. Let's go ahead and bring it back a little bit, like back here. And let's go and extend it just a little bit. Let's just see what this sounds like.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Cool, so that should be good for my band in a live performance. You know, people are going to probably clap, and they won't be able to hear that transition. And that's a lot better with that crossfade, or the fade out. So I've got my setlist. Let's go ahead and take a break. I'm going to look at some questions that are coming up in the comment box. Let me go to File and hit Save. And yeah, let's look at some questions. If you guys have any questions at all, go ahead and type them into the comment box on YouTube. By the way, Keith, welcome from the Bahamas. I wish I was in the Bahamas right now. John says, can you show me one more time how you change the BPM on the tempo track? Sure, all you do is you double click on the tempo track, and down here there's a little white box that says segment BPM. You just click down there, type in your tempo, and hit enter. You just have to remember to just turn off master and then turn it back on. I think it just kind of resets it, resets Live's memory. Eddie says, how do you set up stuff in groups, verse, chorus, verse 2, and assign a hotkey to jump to those? Or is that a different workshop altogether? Well, it probably is another workshop. I think in the last workshop we did, it talked about session view. We talked about, actually I think we did customizing loop arrangements. In that webinar we talk about breaking up your song into sections and then putting them into session view. But I can show you how we can, let's go ahead and break up our song into sections here. So for Open Up the Heavens, let me go ahead and add a few more cues. So there's the intro. Let me just hit that. What you want to do is you want to hit this button that says set, and it adds a marker. And you can now rename those markers to whatever you want. Okay, let's check out what this one is. This is a verse. So right click and make it the verse. Okay, so now what's cool is you can assign hotkeys to these different sections. So in the top right corner of the screen, there's a button that says key. And when you hit key, anything that you see on the screen that turned orange can be assigned to a key on your keyboard. So I'm going to click on Open Up the Heavens. I'm going to make that 1. So I'm just going to click 1 on my keyboard. And it assigned number 1 to Open Up the Heavens. Then I'm going to make the verse, let's just say we're going to make it, I'll make it V for verse. And then our pre-chorus will be P for pre-chorus. And then our chorus will be C. When you leave key command, now, whenever I hit those buttons, it's going to go to those sections of the song. So if I hit 1 and then hit the space bar to hit play, it's going to start my song.
Intro 2, 3.
And now I could hit the V button and it's going to go to the verse. Here we go. Ready? Hit it. Waited for this day. We're gathered in your name, calling out to you. Let's just say we want to do another verse. Hit it again. We've waited for this day. We're gathered in your name. Let's just say we want to go to the pre-chorus. I'm going to hit the P button. You're the reason we're here. And let's go to the chorus. Hit the chorus button. So I'm just now hitting those key commands that I assigned on my keyboard. Now, if you hit the MIDI button, anything that you see that turned blue can be assigned to an external MIDI controller. So maybe what you would do with this is you could use our foot controller that we have at Loop Community called Looptimus. And Looptimus is a foot controller that has 20 banks, which means you could have 20 songs. So the next and previous buttons will cycle through the songs. So right now it's on song 1. And then I could set up this button to be intro, this one to be verse, this one to be pre-chorus, this one to be chorus, bridge, outro, and then stop. And then I could hit next and it goes to my next song. And then it could be intro, verse, pre-chorus, stop. And then hit next again, it goes to our third song, which was Rock Won't Move. Intro, pre-chorus, chorus, stop. So that is where Looptimus comes into play and can be really helpful, especially for people who are running all of their tracks in arrangement view. So that is how you can build a set list in arrangement view. Now, let's just talk about for a second some of the benefits here. So the benefits that I just saw as we did this in arrangement view is that I was able to kind of map out an entire song or an entire set from start to finish. I could add in my markers. I could add in my song transitions. So literally I could hit play and let this whole thing go through till the end. You could probably even put in some time for prayer, or like if you want to say something like welcome to church. So that is a huge plus that you can't really do in session view, or at least as easy. Another plus, I think, is being able to kind of see the tracks and the arrangement, which I think is really why it's called arrangement view, is you can actually see the tracks visually down a timeline from left to right, which I think is helpful. Now, one of the downsides is, in session view, you can just click and drag and move your songs around, your whole set list, if you decide to change the order of your songs. In this view, if you wanted to put Rock Won't Move second, it would be very difficult. You would have to highlight all this. You'd have to cut it and then paste it, but move these over first, and it just kind of gets a little messy. So I feel like that's a downside. But it really depends on how you want to run live. I feel like it's a lot easier and faster to set up set lists in this view, which, by the way, if you're interested in running set lists in this view, we did a webinar on that. You can look through our YouTube channel and find that. It's called Intro to Ableton in Worship. But, you can still run set lists in this view. I think it takes a little bit more time to set up. I think maybe a downside of using arrangement view would be that you can't save a master library. So for me, when I use this view, I actually set up a master library where I have every song that I do listed here in alphabetical order. So then every weekend, all I do is I just reassign the MIDI to what songs I'm doing that week. Where if you're using this view, you can't really do that because all of your songs are down a timeline. I guess you could do it alphabetically, but it would just be quite the session. Might get a little complicated. But I really do like arrangement view for when I am maybe doing a concert or a show that I know the arrangement is going to be the same way, and it looks clean, and it looks like a journey. It looks like a set from left to right, from start to finish. Another plus, actually, I just thought of, is that you can also see down here the time. So you can actually see how long your set is going to be. So right now, our set is 13 minutes and about 30 seconds. So that is actually very helpful as well. Assembly Online, watching from Brazil. Glad you're here, welcome. They said, how do I set the same key for different songs? That's a great question. That is where I think you'd want to use Looptimus, because then you could use a different bank for each song, and then these buttons can be assigned to intro, verse, pre-chorus for that song. If you're trying to use your keyboard in this view, obviously you can't set the same command to verse here and then verse in this song. So you would have to get creative and come up with a different keyboard mapping scheme. So maybe I would do key, and then this would be song 1, and then I would do I don't know, maybe down the keyboard from left to right. This would be Z, X, C, V, etc. And then for the next song, use the next, so make this one 2, and then make the markers like A, S, D, F, G, down your keyboard. You would have to get really creative there. That's where I wouldn't recommend using a keyboard, because it just gets a little, like I'm talking about a computer keyboard, because it just gets a little messy. You could use a MIDI controller like a piano. I have a friend who does that, and he just puts a little piece of tape on each key and writes down what that key is down his piano, like a MIDI piano, and that works great. But you guys are asking questions that are exactly why we created this pedal. This pedal was created and designed for exactly what you're asking about, because we wanted to use the same buttons for the same functions but have different songs. So you can flip through your songs and then choose your button for what section of the song that triggers. Those are all great questions. Do you guys have any more questions? Let's go ahead and type them into the chat box. Okay, so Eddie says, one more question that may have nothing to do with the workshop. If you have a loop that has the click and cues built in, what does the configuration to send the house in ears look like? Do you get me? I get you. So let's go ahead and close the key mode, key mapping out, and let's bring in a song that I do have click and cues on. So it's going to be we'll make it our fourth song. And that's a good question, because let's talk about audio routing and how do we actually route all of these tracks to our soundboard at church or wherever we're playing. So let's go. Let's find a song that I just have a click for, and it's "He Is One," and it's just a split track. Let me drag it in here, and let me play it for you, so you can kind of hear what's going on. You can kind of see what Eddie's talking about.
1, 2, intro.
So there's a click and there's cues, and the loop is panned to the right, but the click is panned to the left.
Band 2, 3, 4.
So how are we going to use this? Okay, well, first thing I'm going to do is we want to go ahead and mark out the song. So let's go ahead and see where this song ends. Cool. I want the next song to start right here. I'm going to hit set. We're going to rename it. We're going to call it 4. And the song is called He Is One. Let's set a time signature change as well. It's going to be 4/4. Okay. And let's go and turn the metronome on. I'm going to drag this song back to the beginning here, so it lines right up with the grid. Let's rename it to He Has One. I like to be organized. Being organized will make your life easier in this world. Okay, let's go and drag the tempo track back a little bit, and let's copy and paste that tempo track in for this song. And double click on it, and let's set the tempo. It's 112. And turn master off, and then turn it back on. And let's hit play and just see what that sounds like.
1, 2, intro, 2,
Cool.
3,
So the
4.
click is lined up. And we also have a click here too.
Band 2, 3,
And you want to make that
4.
tempo track last as long as the song does. So kind of zoom in. So let's talk about audio routing. What are we going to do? Because the click is panned left here, and the loop is on the right. Well, let's talk about how we would route this whole session. Let's just say that we're done. Like, this is the set we're going to use. How do we actually pan this stuff? We're going to use our headphone jack, which means we have two outputs. We've got the left side and we have the right side. The left side of our headphone jack, we're going to put the click and the cues. The right-hand side of our headphone jack, we're going to put all of the tracks. So, we're going to turn on a little button in the bottom right corner that says I/O, and I/O means in and out. So what it did is it just opened up the in and out settings for all of these channels. Now, when I'm doing audio routing, I like to do the routing in session view. So I'm going to hit the tab key and turn on in and out. And now you can see all the in and outs for this stuff. Let's go ahead and map the cues first. So the cues, we're going to tell it right here. It says it's going to the master, but we're going to change this to external out, which is our headphone jack. And we're going to make this 1. 1 is left, 2 is right. That's just something you have to remember. So 1 is left. All right, and our tracks, like Open Up the Heavens, we're going to send that to 2. This Is Amazing Grace is also going to go to 2. Rock Won't Move is going to go to 2. And He Is One, what we're going to do is we're going to set this to go out 1 and 2, because the click is left and the loop is right. Now the Ableton click, this guy up here in the left, top left, it goes out what's over here called Q out. We're going to set that to 1. So now I can hit play. You can hear the click is on the left, the cues are on the left, the tracks are on the right.
1, 2.
Now He Is One,
Intro.
the
2,
click is on the
3,
left,
4.
and the tracks are on the right.
Band. 2, 3, 4.
I'm going to show you a trick that I use a lot, and what we're going to do is I'm going to duplicate this track. I'm going to rename this one to He Is One click, and this one I'm going to rename to He Is One loops. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called the utility plugin. I'm going to go to Audio Effects and drag in the utility plugin. I'm just going to drop it on that track. And I'm going to tell the utility plugin what side of that track to use, and we're going to say left. I'm going to drag it in again on this track, but on this one I want it to use the right-hand side. So now what that did is it gave me 2 tracks, and each track is only using one side.
Band. 2,
So this
3,
one, if I solo
4.
it, is just the click, and if I solo this one, it's just the track. And now I can set my outputs so the click one is going out 1 and the track is going out 2, which is to the right. I like to do that just because now they're separate. I don't have them both on the same track. That's a trick I really like using a lot. Very, very helpful. Alright, let me hit save and let's look at the comment box and see if there's any more questions coming in.